Oh, there they are. Alright, you can sit wherever you want.
I heard that.
No negativity.
Josh is putting me down.
Josh, no negativity. Alright.
Always looking negative.
Jake, this is for you.
Sorry.
Actually, Jake had an unfair advantage.
Oh, okay.
Alright, everyone. If you want a pencil, I have a million pencils, but you have to sharpen them. And, alright, you tell me what's better. This. Here's what's going to happen. Everybody's got a handout. I'm basically going to run through the handout. It's probably going to take about 15 or 20 minutes, maybe a little longer. Then we're just going to start to practice, and that's basically the goal. About 10 of 11, or maybe 5 of, depending on, we'll take a little break, we'll have a little snack, we'll pick up again about 5 after, and we'll be done around 10 of 12. Okay? If you have to go to the bathroom, there's one, you go out here, you go left, and you just keep going straight, and it's there. So, I would like, if you have a question, just raise your hand. It's not really supposed to be like a lecture, but obviously it kind of is. I'm going to make a bigger version. So if you have a question, just let me know. Is there, most of you are, is anybody not in 10th grade? You're 11. You're in college. Okay. Alright, this is the point of the kind of goal here is to, the PSAT is a test, and there it is. PSAT is an exam that everybody takes, usually twice. You take it in 10th grade, and you take it in 11th grade. Okay? Anybody know what PSAT stands for? Yes, Josh.
Preliminary, right?
It is preliminary. Good. Some people think it's practice, but it is preliminary. That's good.
Preliminary.
B.
Something assessment test.
T is test. You got half.
Standardized assessment.
It stands for. Anybody else want to take a guess? It stands for preliminary. That's good. S is scholastic. A, aptitude. T, test. Okay? There's the test. So what PSAT is the preliminary scholastic aptitude test. It is made by the same people who make the SAT, which is a company called the ETS, which stands for Electronic Testing Service. Well, they have kind of different names. They're also called the College Board. They have 4 companies, and they all kind of use different names. Anyway, the thinking is that you take a test like this to get ready for the SAT. You take the SAT, basically try to get into college. All right? So, that's who made it. When they originally made the PSAT, Mr. Greene. Alright. When they originally made the PSAT, it was really used for something that, anybody know what this stands for? Like alphabet soup. MNSQT. Anybody know what that stands for?
Like National Merit Scholar something.
Ooh, Michael. Okay, next pencil. Nice. Yeah, N, national, M, merit, S, scholarship, T is test. Anybody know what Q stands for? That's the tricky one. Qualifying. So here's the deal. They take this test. It really doesn't mean anything at all in terms of getting into college, except one of the things you do when you sign up for it. When you go to take the test, you fill your name, and it's not unlike PSSAs or any of these other tests. But when you go to take it, you tell what classes you took, you get a chance to say what you're interested in. If you do well, you'll start to get all sorts of mail from colleges, or emails. or stuff like that. So if you say you want to go to a big school in a big city and you want to study archaeology, you'll be amazed how much stuff you get. We have probably 4 boxes of flyers and postcards and letters and stuff that have come to us. So the merit test, here's what happened. In 1945, after World War II, the government decided that more people should be able to go to college. Because up until then, most people went to college were relatively wealthy. The average typical person did not go to college, or it was difficult for them to go. So part of the GI Bill, which you may have learned down in school, gave money to fund scholarships for so-called average people to go to college. Okay? So just to give you a little statistic, before 1945, we'll make a guess. Actually, it's kind of representative of what we have here. What percentage of women went to college before 1945?
2%.
A little higher now. Ross, you want to guess? Since you're representing the women here?
5.
It's about 9%. 9%. So actually almost kind of the profile we have in our room today. It was about 10%. And of the 10%, half of them went to women-only colleges, of which there are very few anymore, but there were a lot more then. So anyway, that's just a little random stat for you. So the government gave money. They funded this thing called National Merit Scholarship Foundation, and the foundation's job was to provide scholarships for people who want to go to college. But they didn't really have a way to do it. Who was going to get the money, who wasn't. So after about 10 years, in the mid-50s, they linked up with this test, and this test is the qualification for how you decide who gets a scholarship. Anybody know how this test is scored? I think that's the next slide, actually. No, it isn't, but let's talk about that quickly. How's the test scored? Anybody know? What's the best score you can get on PSAT? Yes.
100,500.
Close. That's a good answer. Not correct, unfortunately, but good answer.
1,600.
1,600 is another good number, also incorrect. That's a relevant number though. 22. One more guess? 2,400. 2,400, perfect score in an SAT.
1,400.
1,800.
Ooh. It's a lot. Well, here's the thing. Here's where it's sort of a trick question. SAT is on a 100 scale. 2,400 perfect score in the SAT. 1,500 is considered a median average score in SATs. 1,800 is considered a very good score in SATs. PSAT you divide by 10. Perfect score in the SAT is 240. Okay?
So it's out of 24.
It's 240 out of 240, but it's split up into 3 sections of 80. So you get 80 for math, 80 for reading, 80 for writing, 80 plus 80 plus 80 is?
240.
Yes! That's how they come up with 240. So here's what happens. The MNSQT company, they take that number and they decide if you're qualified to get a test. Only 5% of the people that take it, which is about 100,000, actually qualify. So it's a very good thing to do if you can get it. Alright, here's what happens. You have to sign up to take the test. Most of you got a letter, or your parents did, like me, looked like this. Yes? And you have to send money back in. The schools used to pay for them. I don't know how they do it. You guys are listening to me. Yeah, even better. So I'm not sure they do it in every school. Schools used to pay for it. A couple years ago they stopped paying for it. I had people last year who prepped for the test, they studied for the test, they ready for the test, and they never paid the money, and when they got there they wouldn't let them take it. Yeah, which is kind of mean, but
That's such a Jacob thing.
yeah. So after like 6 weeks of studying, they couldn't even take the test, which was kind of annoying. But anyway, if you have to sign up and you haven't, you might want to check out and make sure that you do. It's $14, I think, at every school. It may vary slightly. Alright, so here's the thing. How many sections in the test?
4, 2, 3.
5.
Let's try this again. How many sections are there in the
Reading
test?
was 1 and math was 1.
I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. Okay. How many sections are there in the test? 5. Yes.
403.
Anybody name one type of section?
Reading.
Reading. What else? And
Reading.
writing. Reading, writing. This is the exact order it goes in. The SAT down the road splits up. It doesn't always go in the same order. GSAT always goes like this, so you know what's coming. And that's actually the same order we're going to work on it today. Alright, no extended breaks. You pretty much sit down and take the test, and you're sitting there. Here's a good question. How long is the PSAT?
3 hours. 3
Yes.
hours and 45 minutes.
Ooh, good guess. That's how long the ACT is.
Anyone?
Um,
Yeah, make a guess. No, come on.
2 hours.
Very close guess.
2
2
hours,
hours, 10 minutes. 4 minutes, 4 sections, 25 minutes. One is 30.
You X-A's.
Okay? So it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. Basically what happens is you sit down, you fill out all the stuff with your name and your address and all of that stuff. That takes about a half hour. Then you start, you do the first section, 25 minutes. You get about a 30-second break. You take the second section, 25 minutes. You get about a 2-minute break. And then you take the last 3 sections. So it's a relatively grueling test. It's besides the SAT, it's usually the longest test people take. All right. So each section, there's things you have to know. All right. So for reading, there's actually 3 kinds of questions. If you forward ahead in your packet a little bit, you will see, because it's in here. So if you go here where it says section 1, this is what the reading looks like. And we're actually going to work on this. The pages aren't numbered, at least in the handout, but it looks like this. Okay, I could put this up on the screen, but it takes too long to come back to this slide. So there's 3 kinds of reading questions. We're going to talk about each, but one of them is called sentence completions. Basically, you got to fill in the blank on the sentence. Second one is a short reading passage. That's on the next page. Third one is a longer reading, which is typically the one people do not like, but that's what it is. So when we get done with this part, we're going to work on each of these a little bit. Okay? Math. So for reading, there's really 2 things you got to be good at. I know vocabulary. I'm actually going to give out, not now, but towards the end, a vocabulary sheet for everybody. And reading comprehension. That's what it tests. Right? Alright, next, math. If you go forward in the packet a little bit more, section 2, the big 2 at the top. This is math. Okay? There's 2 different kinds of math questions. Anybody know what kind there are? There's multiple choice
And grading.
and there's grading. Multiple choice sounds like you have a choice of answers. Grading, you have to put your own answer in. They're actually typically harder. So math covers arithmetic, adding, subtracting, algebra, geometry. Now the complaint everybody always has is most people are probably taking geometry now, right? So here's the issue. About 1/3 of this test is geometry, plus or minus. There are 38 math questions on the PSAT. Around 10, maybe 12, 9, varies a little bit year to year, are geometry based. So the problem is, if you're in 10th grade and you've just taken geometry for 3 weeks or 4 weeks at this point, you probably haven't learned a lot of things you're going to need for this. This is one of the arguments of why people take it again in 11th grade. It's not really the best argument. It's also an argument of why bother taking it in 10th grade, but it is what it is. The SAT is about the same, but it's more advanced algebra. Goes into kind of mild algebra 2. Then the writing has 3 parts as well. This is actually section 5 in the packet. It's basically grammar. Writing is basically a grammar test. If you know grammar, you do pretty well.
Oh, you're
If
not
you know
actually
grammar,
reading.
you got problems. Now the problem with grammar is you're not going to learn a whole grammar book in a month. So that's what we got to deal with. So basically, you need to know vocabulary, you know how to read, understand it, that will get you through the reading. Got a little bit of algebra, geometry, arithmetic. That'll help you in the math. Grammar is the main thing on the writing. Now the purpose of today is not to teach you a whole grammar book or to teach you a whole vocabulary from the dictionary. It's more to get you a little bit of an exposure to how these questions actually present and what they look like. So, anybody have any questions? Alright, good. Here's what we're going to do. What's wrong? This is perfect. We're actually right on time. Yes, perfect. Okay, here's what I want everybody to do. Go into our packet, and we're going to go to section 1. Okay? Now, here's what we're going to do. Everyone has a pencil or something to write with? Alright, let me see if I can shift this in here.
Oh, wow.
Okay, you should be looking at this page. Now, here's what we're going to do. We'll try to get this on the screen. So this is not going to work exactly how I want it, but okay.
No calculator on the grammar.
Yes, you cannot use a calculator.
Written question?
Reading question is a type of math question where you have to write your own answer. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to give you a quick strategy on how to do these. Unfortunately, this is not showing up very good on that. So here's the deal. Basically, you're looking at a sheet where you've got 8 questions, and this is exactly what you're going to see. Okay? Your goal, you got to put the best words to finish the sentence. Okay? All right? Now, the question is, how do you do this? So this is your rough strategy. Okay? Number 1 is you have to find main idea. Okay? 2 is look for vocabulary. 3, write it down if you want. We'll leave it up on the Now, it's not this simple. If we were doing a comprehensive test prep program, there would be a lot more to this. But for today, because my goal is, I want everybody to have at least a basic idea of what to expect when they take the test in a couple of weeks. So here's what you do. You look at the word, you read the sentence, and you say, what's basically going on here? Okay? Popularity of Art Nouveau, a highly decorative style design, what, during the first decade of the 20th century, only to what, some 10 years later, when everyone seemed to lose interest. Now, what's basically going on here? Do we really care about the Art Nouveau itself? No. You're trying to figure out what happened to it. Does the fact that it was highly decorative make a difference? No. So you would figure out what happened to it at the beginning of the century, what happened to it 10 years later. Now what's the big hint here? Yes, Josh?
When everyone seemed to lose interest,
Yes. So when did they lose interest?
some 10 years later.
Right. So what would that imply happened before that?
It surged.
Yes. So the first blank, excellent job.
Thank you.
Let's get some extra pencil. Right. So the first word, we need something that would imply it gained in popularity. And what's the second blank basically going to say?
Lost popularity.
Yeah, decrease. So first one, increase, second one, decrease. Now what do you do? Now we're up to step 3. Step 4, sorry. Look at the list, see which words match this. So the first word means increase, second word, decrease. Am I allergic to cats? You are. It's not that bad. Don't stick your nose in. I think she's a hypoallergic cat though, because my wife was allergic to cats, but she's not allergic to cats. We don't know exactly. Good question. I think she, that's how we got her, so. The question was, what's wrong with her tail? Either she got bit by something, or got stuck in a drawer or something. She was a straight out. She was like
One night when you're sleeping.
Alright, who's got number 1? Yes. Who says E? Who says something besides E? Excellent. Everyone got the first question right. Give yourselves a hand. Good. Alright. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Try a couple of these problems. Alright? I'm going to kind of walk you through it. I'm going to walk around a little bit, work with people if you want. We'll do the second one together, and we're going to go from there. So, the sculpture, the death of Cleopatra, was immediately recognized as what kind of work? Because no one had done anything like it before. That's the big hint. First time it ever happened. Okay? What word would probably fit in there? Yes. So the key is read it, try to understand it. Okay? You're going to understand it based on the main idea, vocabulary that you might see there. Pick a word, or sometimes words, or sometimes even a phrase of your own, and then go from there. So why don't we do this? It might take about 5 minutes, and if that, we'll try to do a couple of these. So we're going to move into the reading. If you have a question, just let me know. Okay. Now here's the thing. If you haven't figured this out already, what's the hardest part about these usually? Yes. Or more specifically, lack of, usually. If you don't know the words, it's difficult. Because you're not going to have a dictionary with you when you take the test. Alright, finish the one you're on, and then we'll go over these a little bit. All the answers are in the back. If you could, not that I want you to cheat, but when you take this home, because we're not going to make it through this whole packet, we're going to go home and work on it more. The last page of the packet, this page here, has all the answers on it. Okay? So, we can check it. Alright, let's take a look at number 2. Who's got an answer for 2?
C.
It is C.
I get a C.
I should get the stamps. I'll get the stamp during the break.
Stamps are the best.
Yeah, I'll get a stamp during the break. I was remiss. Forgot the stamp.
I don't know if that one makes you
I'll get the stamp. Good job, though. How about 3? Well, not openly contemptuous, the comedian's comments about the city included such blank insinuations the audience was offended. Yes, Josh.
E.
Who else says E? Good. Oh no, what happened? You got it? All right.
Got it.
Last one. Let's look at 4. Then we're going to go into reading. Shorter analysis, but long on what? The book is little more than a series of diverting stories. So we need a word that means like stories. Especially stories that don't really keep your attention. The vocabulary here is a little trickier.
Can I take a guess?
You want to take a guess? Yes.
Is it cliche? Oh.
Cliche is actually not a bad answer. There's a better answer though. Anyone else? Well, it's not cliche. Although cliche is not a bad answer. It's just not specific enough. And that's the last thing I was going to say about these. So actually, it's good. Yes. Anecdote? Yes. Anecdote is a short story.
Wait,
Usually one
Aaron,
has
did
like
you
a
say-
joke almost.
Aaron, did you say B or D?
D.
Oh.
Oh, don't try to diss Aaron.
I
It's
already
a short
said-
story. What?
No, that's right. Ron. He's trying to diss you. All right.
Well, you had cliche,
So,
I wouldn't be talking.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. You make a mental note of this if you don't write it down. Usually, there's 5 answers. Okay? I'm going to tell you because I've done lots and lots and lots of these. Usually, obviously, one is correct. Then there's going to be one that's close. Like in this case, cliche is not a bad answer. If the anecdote wasn't there, cliche actually is a pretty good answer. So it's there, they call them in the SAT world a trap. It's there to trick you and try to trap you into putting in the correct answer. One of your goals is try to avoid that. Right? Then there's usually 1 or 2 answers that are just absolutely wrong if you know what they mean. Often they're antonyms. Everyone knows what an antonym is, right? So in this case, we needed words like a story. So does prophecy make any sense? No. Pedantry. Now that's where pedantry is the other type of trick question. Who knows what pedantry is? Probably nobody, right? Including me. Actually, I do. But most people wouldn't. So here's what happens. Sometimes, and don't fall into this trap. Some people will put a word they don't know because they figure, oh, if I don't know it, it must be a fancy word, therefore it must be the answer. It's a completely flawed logic. It makes no sense, but I see people do it more frequently than you could imagine. Okay? Pedantry, by the way, anybody want to make a guess? It's actually kind of a good word to know. Hopefully you're not finding today, well, it wouldn't be right to use the word, but pedantric is the adjective. Pedantry means very average, like boring, mundane is a synonym for it. Just something that has nothing about it at all that stands out in any way, shape, or form. So it's not a particularly nice thing to say about something, it's not a bad thing, it's just sort of neutral. So pedantry, prophecy really make no sense here at all, but pedantry is an answer. You'd be surprised how many people put that. Cliche is the close answer, the trap answer. Critique, same kind of thing. Why do you think somebody would put critique? What does critique mean? What? Yeah, it means to make a criticism of something. Well, what's the question of that? It's about an analysis. So this is how people's minds work. They say, oh, this has analysis in it. A critique is a type of analysis. Therefore, critique must be the answer. So these are all wrong. So, all right, let's move on. Any questions about these? Here's a little trivia. How many of these are you going to see on the PSAT total? Because there's 2 sections of reading. How many altogether?
28.
Oh,
Oh.
there's 8. Well, there's 8 in this section, so that's, it has to be at least 8. No, there's another section, too, which is not in this packet. There are 13. There are 13 of these total in the test. All right, let's go to the next page. This is the short reading. Okay, I'm not going to spend as much time on this because I want to spend more time on the longer reading. Okay, why do you think they're called the short reading? Because it's short. Why do you think the other one's called the long reading? Longer. But that's really the reason why. They actually call it the short and long reading. Here's the deal. here's the deal. Let me see if I can do this properly. Okay, here's your basic plan here, all right? The basic plan on these is what most people do, which is not terrible, but it's not efficient time-wise, is they read the whole passage. Okay, now in this case it's only 6 or 8 sentences. But here's how you want to try to do this. You want to this is kind of like a little flow chart. So here's what you want to try to do. Step 1. Bonnie Greene's taking pictures.
Except what do I have?
Very smart. Anybody afraid of the camera?
Back here, I see everybody at the back of their heads.
Yeah. Alright, so here, QR. This is basically what we want to try to do. What QR means is Q, look at the questions first. R, you do what? Look at the reading. So we're going to kind of flip-flop back and forth. So here's, why would you look at the questions first? Any suggestions?
So you can just try to find any passage.
Yeah, so you know what you're going to look for when you read. Like, excellent answer.
I have another pencil.
We're calling. Whoa, you already got the 20. Say stuff for somebody else. Yeah, but Mike
You know who the
was
smart one in
right.
the group is.
We look at the questions first, not for an hour, for like a quick glance, because you want to know what you're looking for when you read, right? That's the key. So, we look at the question, we say, all right, what am I up with? Now, the strategy, which I'm not going to get into hugely here, is called the 3W strategy. Okay? Now, that's not going to mean a whole lot to you, so I'll tell you what the 3 W's are. Who has learned the 5 W's in writing?
Who, when, where, when, why?
When we're why. So we're just kind of, it's like a, it's a truncation of
It's a
that.
pencil.
Yeah.
I already got one.
What color?
Yeah. So the first W is where.
Alright.
Red.
Second W is why. Third W is what. Let me tell you how these apply. All right. So if you look at the first question, number 9, where are we most likely to find the answer?
Lines 1 and 3.
Yes, between lines 1 and 3. Now, that doesn't mean it's only in 1 to 3. Sometimes 1 to 3 will suggest it might actually be in 4 and 5. But generally, are we expecting the answer to be in lines 10 to 12? No. So, where locates? Why has to do with the question. It's hard in this one. Okay? Basically, it's why are they asking the question. Now, number 9, they're asking the question, what does this analogy in the first 3 lines suggest? So when you read it, which is the what has to do with the reading, you know what you're looking for. So instead of reading this sort of randomly, because what most people do is they read it, and then they kind of just remember whatever they think is important. You're sort of self-prioritizing the passage. So if you're going to read something, let's say you had to read something for history class, probably what you do is you would read it, and you're saying, oh gee, that's important, that's not such a big deal, that's really important, that's even less of a big deal, and you're sort of deciding what you need to know, filtering it typically through the next stage, which is if you had a test or something coming up you had to deal with. Well here's the problem. The stuff that they, when I say they, I mean the people that write and score these tests, test you on isn't necessarily the most important stuff. In fact, sometimes it's the most unimportant, banal stuff. It's a good vocabulary word for you.
Yeah, that was on the other page.
See?
Yeah.
You got
So
it.
that-
Yeah.
You got it.
There you go. Alright, so anyway, where are we going to look? 1 to 3.
Noah.
So the first thing we do is, we go to the reading. We go to the question. We have now determined 2 things. 3, really. Where we're going to look, why we're reading it, and then what we're going to look at as we're reading it, so you're more specific. And then you read. Then you kind of go back to the question and say, alright, which answers make sense? And if you have to, this last R is sort of optional. Okay, sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. Alright, so let's try. We're going to do 2 of these. Let's go 9 and 10. Okay? just keep working. I'm just going to start talking back now. Remember I was saying before with the sentence completions, of the 5 answers, obviously one's right. One's going to be close, going to try to trick you. 2 of them, maybe 3, are going to be bad. So part of your job is to filter that out. You got to understand what's going on, so you can get rid of the bad answers. You don't see the right answer right away, but that's your goal. All right, everybody done? Now, in a real test, because we're not worried about today, but it is a timed test, so you have to worry about pacing. All right? Normally, how much time would you get per question? About
A minute.
about a minute. Good answer, Josh. Yeah. So, normally you would allot how many minutes to do 2 questions?
2.
2. Very good. So, all right. The answers are, I'm going to just look them up just to check. All right. First one, B. Second one, also B. And this is BB.
What is tenacious mean?
Ah, good question. Who knows what tenacious means?
Rampant.
Tenacious means like fierce. You don't quit. Okay? Tenacity, I think, is the actual thing. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're not going to finish it, but I want to look at the next passage, okay? So let's go to the long passage. We're going to flip the next page. Now, I put this one here purposely. They're basic. Oh, just as an aside. Who remembers how many sentence completion questions are there? 13. How many short readings are there total? There's 4 on that page. How many altogether? 8. Excellent answer. Okay, so we got 8. Okay, the rest of them are all long reading, which is 27 total. They're split up into 3 passages between the 2 sections. All right, so here's what I want you to try to do. The questions are on the next page. So now here's the trouble. Let's look at question 13. Question 13 says, the authors of these 2 passages most strongly agree with the following statements. Now, if you're going to go with my system, kind of just working by the questions, it's going to be difficult to answer this question right away. Because we haven't really read much, if anything. So what you do is, what do? Ignore it, pretend it isn't there. No, what you do is we're just going to skip it for the time being. Because look at the next question, look at 14. Now, where are we probably going to find the answer to 14?
1 and 4.
Yes. Why are they asking it? Well, paper, pencil, and processor, word processor, that suggests what? This is a much easier question to answer. Now, because it's less complicated and it's much easier to figure out where your answer is. Dealing with what authors think about entire passages takes a lot more processing of information. So one of the things you try to do, and we're not going to try to deal with it today, but one of the goals, medium term, long term, is you got 8 or 10 questions here. One of the things you want to do is kind of look through them and say, gee, which ones are probably going to be the easiest ones to answer, or the fastest ones to answer. Now just looking at it, I'm going to tell you what 14 is. Anybody want to think what other ones would be? Yes. 18, definitely. That's known, by the way, 18 are known as vocabulary, or sometimes known as context questions. There's some on the next page also. And then whenever you get one of these, passage 1, passage 2, put that off till the end. Don't not do it, just don't do it right away. So, how about 15? Easy or hard? Who's to find where to do it? Easy. So the key is, do the simpler, easy questions first. They all count the same. Hardest question on the test, 1 point. Easiest question on the test, 1 point. They're all the same. So do the ones you're going to get the easiest, and then move in from there. Plus, the last piece of it is, doing these questions first will help you understand the rest of it. So my suggestion would be, do 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, maybe even just 18, and then kind of circle back and see where we're from there. So here's what we're going to do. Just for the sake of time, just take around 5 minutes, work on these. Anybody have a question on how to do this? So you want to look at the question. You got the 3 things that are going to help you figure out where to read. Knowing where to read is the most important thing here. Once you know where to read, then you're focusing on why do I need to read it? What do I need to learn as I'm reading it? Alright? Do the easiest ones first, then circle back and do the more difficult ones. This is what's going to happen. We're going to work on this for about 5 minutes. Then we're going to take a little break. We're almost half done. Take a little break, then we'll finish up with math and writing. Anyone have any questions? Questions? Alright, I'm going to run upstairs and get our break materials. No, this is good. I'll be right back. Rejoinder is, well, it depends, but in conversation, like, let's say we were talking about something, and then we just got distracted with something else. The joiner will be going back to the original conversation. It only connects two things that are unlike to make something familiar.
What is the reference?
But it can be, it's a couple different ways to do someone. If it's conversational, it's different.
Yeah, that's
sort of
And incredulous is like,
I agree.
part of the something that not going to That's pretty incredulous, huh? You guys be okay?
yeah.
Alright. You running the table here? Jockey. Alright, gentlemen, you okay?
You say B for some.
Yeah, where this could be.
Alright, we're going to take about 30 more seconds. We're going to kind of put this section to a close, and we're going to
I'm pretty sure I'm right.
have a little break, and then we'll release your snacks.
Is that right?
You take pictures.
Will you change? I said B. What about seven?
Might just go just list.
So is this reading? Where's reading? 18. I got 2 wrong. Just change my answer real quick.
Alright.
Who's right?
Any questions? So we're going to take a little break. Okay, so listen, here's what I'd recommend you do.
Wait, actually, I do.
You have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Could you lower 16?
Alright, let's talk about 16.
No, 15.
No. I
Alright,
understand.
and it's actually a good example.
And 15.
Now let's start with 16 and we'll circle back. Okay, so we're gonna use this kind of strategy. Now this is sort of very realistic because I actually haven't done this test more than just looking through it to make sure it was kind of average difficulty test. So I look at 16 and I say, okay, John Cotry uses the phrase "a good story," line 32, to indicate what? Okay, so where? Pointing here. Where are we going to look around line 32 or so? And we got to look for the phrase "a good story." But more importantly, what does that do? What does that tell the reader? So go back over here and we say, all right. Now, normally you don't want to start reading at 32. You might want to read, so there's a paragraph break a little bit earlier, but autobiographical memory, according to Cotry, is a constant state of struggle between opposing forces. A myth maker that, in striving to turn the lives into a good story, favors poetic license and embellishment, and the archivist, a stickler for historical truth. Okay. So the good story would indicate something positive. So what the guy's saying is, basically, when you look back on your life, you sort of have 2 ways to do it. You can look at it, try to make it all positive, which is what this myth maker does, and the good story is kind of the positive version of it. Or you got part of your memory that's like, no, this is real, how it really happened, and you don't change it. Okay? So what does this indicate? The good story indicates, alright, so now, memory of an emotionally moving episode, memory of an expressed in poetic language, so it's not B, because you're not really making it into a poem. So B is an answer that would be sort of the one you don't want. Those are the events that are historically accurate. Now, which answer would that be for? Is C what the myth maker does or the other person does? The other, whatever, what do they call it?
Because it's a
The archivist. So C would be the other one, the archivist. A compelling narrative that casts a person in a favorable light. That's a good answer. Dramatic account that appears plausible, but it's made up. No, the answer is going to be D. Now, we should probably check. Let's check it. Yes. need a pencil. Michael. I got a pencil.
Steve, can I have that lanyard? Can you toss me that?
Not yet. Alright. But the idea is, there's a balance. It is reading comprehension. You still got to read it, and you still got to understand what's in the reading. The technique, this 3W idea, what you're trying to do is focus in on what you have to read, so you're processing the least amount of extra stuff that you have to. Okay, now let's try to use the same idea on 15, then we're going to take a break. 26 to 28 serve to provide what? So what is the purpose of this part of the passage? It's basically the paragraph before. So in autobiographical memory, we become better than we really are. In accident reports and insurance claims, we tend to never be at fault. Trees and telephone poles maliciously rebounded us. Fence posts and stop sign appeared before us. So what it's basically saying is how we sort of have a revisionist memory where we never do anything wrong. Okay? Now, what was the answer here? Numerous illustration. Right, the trees really jump at people. Telephone poles, whatever. Right, the telephone poles maliciously jump at you. Maliciously means what, by the way? Just to test, but what does maliciously mean?
Bad.
Yeah, it means evil. Malicious means evil. Okay? But the key is just to close it out for reading. We have how many kinds of questions in reading? 3. Sentence completion, short and long reading. The short and long reading basically have the same game plan. You don't need this as much as the short one, but it's the same. And sometimes it's actually easier to learn on the short ones than the long ones. Okay? Sentences, you're looking to get the best word for the blank. Question?
Would you recommend reading the entire passage before, or both of the passages in this case, before you answer the question?
If you can do this effectively, no.
Okay.
I will tell you, I don't know how many people I've worked with in my life, probably 10,000, and maybe 500, yeah, that's all. Maybe 100 or so just can't do it this way. They just don't feel comfortable, it just doesn't work for them, it just doesn't fit unless they read it.
Yeah.
But this is a newer skill. Most people don't read like this. So my answer would be no, I don't suggest that you read it. But
Will we have enough time to read it? If we
that's the problem. Mostly no. You're going to find, listen, you get, well, do it this way. How many questions are there at the end of this passage? I think 11.
8.
There's 8. Or the next page.
Oh, 9, 12.
There's 12. Okay, so what I told you before, how much time will we budget to do this? 12 minutes. Now here's the problem. Don't do it now, but if you go home and read that at a normal reading rate, I bet it takes you at least 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, but then if it works
I'm
out that
fighting
it helps me to answer the questions faster.
Then it's fine. But the problem was, usually it doesn't, because what I was saying before about the prioritization, like, would you read that on your own and think you have to know about the malicious trees?
Sometimes.
Well, yeah, that's the problem, though. No, here's the bottom line. What's the most important thing? Getting the answers right, okay? There's a lot of ways to do it. This is one. There's others. But you want to practice it and figure out which one works the best for you. I will tell you, there's 5 of these on the test. There's 5 readings. You may find that one of them, this works great, another one works okay, one of them doesn't work at all, and you have to read it. You kind of don't really know that till you start doing it.
Wait, so for like question 13, like would we have to read both the passages then?
You have to, at the very least, understand them.
Yeah.
So the idea is, if you did the other 10 or 11 of the other questions, by that time, by default, you're pretty much understanding them anyway because you've done all the other questions. If you got to this point where you circle back here and you still didn't understand it, either you didn't understand it or you probably really have to read more. All right, guess what? It's break time. So here's what I'm going to do. This is a special treat. This is actually pretty heavy. Actually, I'm going to put this in.
Yeah.
All right.
All out.
They go all out. Actually, these are we've got to give credit where they're due. This is Mommy Greene's homemade chocolate chip cookies. Anybody not like chocolate chips? Jake? Like chocolate chip?
Jacob can only eat
Alright.
salad.
Got a glass of a bottle of water for everybody.
Thank you.
I'll do the honors.
Josh, you can unwrap. So, I don't know how many cookies there are, but I don't think there's enough if you grab 12 of them. But it's gonna take about 10 minutes.
Thank you.
That was rough.
Top of the head.
Alright,
Thank you, Steve.
alright, actually I should get some napkins. Alright, grab some cookies, I think.
Whoa.
Alright, look. These over here, I think this is right, I may have this backwards.
It's soft.
These ones a little
Crunchiest.
lighter are softer, and these are a little crunchier.
Based on how you
There's a part.
I'm even gonna have them. Alright.
You, Jason, will you give me one?